Carl Schmitt's The Concept of the Political, 1932, is a foundational text in political theory that explores the nature of politics, its boundaries, and its relationship to other spheres of human activity. Schmitt's argument hinges on the idea that the essence of the political lies in the distinction between friend and enemy. In this essay, I will delve into the central themes of Schmitt's work, examining his views on the political, the enemy, the state, and the implications of his ideas in the context of modern political thought. The nature of the political. Schmitt begins by asserting that the political is a distinct and independent category that cannot be reduced to other spheres of human life, such as the economic, the moral, or the social. According to Schmitt, the political is a specific realm of human activity that is concerned with the decision over the existence of the enemy. Politics is not merely about governance or the management of public affairs, nor is it confined to the formal structures of the state. Rather, it is about the distinction between friend and enemy, and the capacity to decide whether or not to engage in conflict. For Schmitt, the political is existential. It is about the survival of a group, and the most extreme form of political decision is the decision to go to war. The political is defined by this potential for conflict, by the reality that human societies can, in certain circumstances, come into violent opposition. This idea is a departure from liberal political theory, which tends to downplay the role of conflict and focus on cooperation and consensus. Schmitt's focus on conflict and decision reveals his more pessimistic view of human nature and his belief that the political cannot be understood through the lens of idealism or moralism alone. The friend-enemy distinction. The central concept in Schmitt's political theory is the friend-enemy distinction. According to Schmitt, the political is defined by the distinguish between friends and enemies. This distinction is not based on subjective preferences or social affiliations, but on a more fundamental level of identity and opposition. A political group identifies itself by defining who belongs to the group, the friend, and who is outside it, the enemy. The enemy, in Schmitt's conception, is not necessarily an individual or group with whom one has personal animosity, but an adversary who poses an existential threat to the group's identity. This is what makes the distinction between friend and enemy so crucial. It is not simply a matter of disagreement or conflict over issues, but a matter of survival and the preservation of a political community. The enemy is a total adversary, someone whose existence threatens the very being of the group. Schmitt's friend-enemy distinction challenges the liberal vision of politics, which tends to view all conflict as resolvable through compromise, dialogue, or negotiation. In contrast, Schmitt emphasizes the impossibility of reconciling enemies and argues that political decisions often involve an uncompromising existential choice. Sovereignty and the state. Schmitt's theory of the political is closely tied to his understanding of sovereignty. For Schmitt, sovereignty is defined by the ability to decide the exception. The sovereign is the one who has the power to suspend the normal legal order in times of crisis, when the survival of the political community is at stake. This decision to suspend the law to declare a state of emergency is the ultimate expression of political power. In Schmitt's view, the state is the institution that is tasked with making this decision. The state is the entity that decides who the enemy is and whether war or conflict is necessary. This gives the state a central role in determining the political life of a community. The state's sovereignty, in Schmitt's theory, is not based on its legal or democratic legitimacy, but on its ability to make decisive political decisions in the face of existential threats. Schmitt's focus on sovereignty as the ability to decide the exception reflects his deep concern with the weakening of state power in the modern world. He was particularly critical of the rise of liberalism and the rule of law, which, in his view, hindered the state's capacity to act decisively in moments of crisis. In a world increasingly dominated by bureaucracy and legalism, Schmitt believed that the state had lost its ability to respond effectively to the true demands of politics. Modern liberalism. One of Schmitt's main targets in The Concept of the Political is liberalism, which he criticizes for its emphasis on individualism, universalism, and the idea of a neutral public sphere. Schmitt believed that liberalism's focus on compromise, consensus, and the peaceful resolution of conflicts undermine the political character of society. In his view, liberalism's insistence on pluralism and the avoidance of sharp distinctions between friend and enemy led to the depoliticization of society. Schmitt's critique of liberalism is rooted in his belief that political life is necessarily antagonistic. He argues that liberalism's refusal to recognize the possibility of genuine conflict results in a false and idealized conception of politics. Liberalism, for Schmitt, obscures the reality of the political by trying to make it compatible with the values of peace and order. He viewed this as a dangerous tendency, as it left political communities vulnerable to external threats, precisely because they were unwilling to make the necessary distinctions between friend and enemy. Schmitt's opposition to liberalism is not simply theoretical, but also practical. He believed that modern liberal democracies were ill-equipped to deal with the challenges of modern politics, particularly the threats posed by totalitarian regimes and the potential for war. In Schmitt's view, the liberal state's emphasis on legal norms and procedures was insufficient in moments of crisis, when the political community needed to make decisive and uncompromising choices. The political and the ethical. Another important aspect of Schmitt's theory is his distinction between the political and the ethical. Schmitt argues that the political cannot be reduced to ethical or moral categories, such as justice or the good. While ethical considerations may inform political decisions, they cannot define the political itself. The political is defined by the capacity for decision, not by the pursuit of moral ideals. This distinction between the political and the ethical is crucial for understanding Schmitt's approach to politics. He believes that the ethical idealism, often promoted by liberalism or socialism, leads to the neglect of the reality of conflict. By focusing on ethical ideals, political actors risk losing sight of the real, existential threats that shape the political realm. For Schmitt, politics is about survival and the defense of the political community, not the realization of moral goals. In The Concept of the Political, Carl Schmitt offers a provocative and controversial account of politics that challenges many of the assumptions of liberal democratic thought. His focus on the friend-enemy distinction, the sovereign decision, and the centrality of conflict to political life provides a stark contrast to more optimistic views of politics based on consensus, cooperation, and peace. Schmitt's work remains influential in political theory, particularly in discussions of sovereignty, state power, and the nature of political conflict. Although his ideas have been widely critiqued, especially due to his affiliation with Nazism, his analysis of the political as a distinct and conflictual domain continues to resonate with scholars and political theorists today.